Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Angel, and today I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite Christmas DIYs made with wood. For this first project, I'll be using some of these wood spindles. Now, I had these laying around my house from an old shelf, and I know not everyone has spindles laying around, so I did a little research, and you can actually get unfinished spindles off of Etsy for less than $5. I just went ahead and cut these down using my miter box saw. Again, it is linked below, and I got it off of Amazon if you are interested, but I did go ahead and cut one of these straight in half, and then for the other one I made them two different sizes. Now for the base of these, I am just using some of these Dollar Tree wood pieces, and I am just gonna take some of Dollar Tree's wood glue and glue these down. Now I did end up adding a screw through the bottom into these spindles, but that is definitely totally optional. Once the glue was dry, I just went in with some of my Waverly chalk paint, and I gave each of these just one coat each. Then I went back in with a Dollar Tree sanding block, and I sanded over this where the ledges are, just to bring back some of that wood look. I picked out a few of Dollar Tree's bottle brush trees, and I'm just going to remove that little wood piece on the end, and I'm going to use some hot glue to stick these trees on top of my spindles. For this next project, I picked up two of Dollar Tree's 8-inch wood pieces and then two of their 12-inch wood pieces. Now you can obviously do this with any scrap wood that you have, but I wanted to show you how to do this with Dollar Tree wood. The first thing I did was go ahead and mark everything. You're going to mark from the bottom right corner to the upper left, and then do the opposite on the other piece. Then once again, I used my miter box saw to cut everything down. Then you can just go ahead and use some wood glue to glue together all of your corresponding pieces. Don't worry if the cuts are not perfect. As you can see, one of my larger ones has a little dip in it, but that just gives these more character. Once my wood glue was dry, I'm going to take some of this Dollar Tree spackling and put it in a bowl, and then I'm just going to add a tiny bit of water to this and mix it up because we are going to make a kind of paste. You want it to look kind of whippy, like Cool Whip, because we're going to add this to a piping bag. I got these piping bags from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to scoop all of this into that piping bag, and then I'm going to cut the tip off. And I'll also be using one of these Dollar Tree Cricut spatulas for this project, and then I'm just going to go in just like you're icing a cupcake, and you're going to start putting little dots all the way across, and then you're going to take that little Cricut tool and you're going to start in the center and just pull upward to smooth it out. Then go right back in to make your second row by squeezing the little dots right on top of where you ended smoothing it out. Then you're just going to continue doing this all the way up all of your trees. Once you finish piping all of your trees, you want to go ahead and let this dry for at least 24 hours. After the 24 hours, I just went in with some of my white chalk paint and I gave everything a base coat. Now, when you're painting over the spackling, just be careful. You don't want to rub too hard. I am just kind of pushing the paint onto there. And then once I had the white base coat, I'm going to go back in with some antique gold paint. And once again, I'm just kind of pushing the paint onto there. You can choose whatever colors you want for this Christmas. These are the colors that I'll be using. I ended up using some antique gold, regular gold, and then some of my copper paint to go over these. Now you can definitely just choose how much paint you want. You could even leave these white if you wanted to. Some of mine I added a lot of paint, and then some I just kind of did the tips where I had pushed that spackling down. Next DIY, I thought that it would be super cute to do a customized little letter to Santa. So I'm just using this wood plank from Dollar Tree. You can use any scrap wood you may have. And I'm just dry brushing some of my white chalk paint over top of this. Not really worried about the coverage because I did want some of the wood to show through. Now, I don't have a Cricut, but if you do, you could totally use that, a stencil or stamps for this. But I just traced out some words from my computer, and then I'm gonna mark all over this on the back using a pencil. Then I will place this where I want it and tape it down. Then all I had to do was just go back over those letters with my pencil, and it will leave an imprint of the letters on the board. Then I was able to just go back in with some Sharpies and trace over everything. I just used red to write Santa, and then for everything else, I just used my black Sharpie. Everything I use in today's projects will be linked below for you, but I'm going to be using these stamps that I got from Amazon. Now, I do have one of those clear acrylic blocks for these stamps, but I was too lazy to actually look for it. So I just used a piece of tape, and I'm going to use one of these stamps. It has like a postage on it, and I'm gonna put that up in the corner, and then I just used a pencil to make the little lines like it came from the post office. Then again, I just traced over it with my Sharpie, and here I'm just using another little stamp. It's like a typewriter, and it says Dear Santa. And then finally, this is where you can customize this any way you'd like. You could put your family name, address, or your children's names, grandchildren's names. I just used my son's schoolwork, and again I just scribbled on the back of it with a pencil and then traced over it on the front so that I could get his handwriting on here. For this final project, I wanted to make a little wood church, so I picked up this house at Dollar Tree. You can use any of their houses or make your own from scrap wood or whatever you want to do, but I just picked this piece up and I flipped it over to use the backside, and then I'm going to be using one of their thin wood pieces and some of these craft sticks. Now, the first thing I went ahead and did was paint all of my pieces with some of my brown paint. You can choose any color you want, but this is just going to be a base underneath what we're going to be doing to this church. And once my pieces were dry, I added some hot glue. Now I'm using Gorilla Glue hot glue sticks, and these are great for wood, or you can use some wood glue. Then I'm going to take some of Dollar Tree spackling, and I'm going to add a few drops of water to make this into a paste. And again, I'm going to be using my little Dollar Tree Cricut spatula, and you just want to spread this all over both of your pieces on the sides, the top, and the front. And you can spread this out thin or thick. You can leave little spots without the spackling on them. It's totally up to you. And once I had the spackling spread out while it's still wet, I'm going to take this little Dollar Tree pick and I'm going to make horizontal lines all the way across my church, the top piece and the bottom piece, because I wanted to make this look like a really old wooden church. I let this dry for about 24 hours and then I cut down those little craft sticks that I showed at the beginning, and I'm just going to hot glue those down to make the little tops of the roofs. Then I just used a leftover piece of the craft sticks from the roof part to make a little door for this church, and I just used a black marker to make a handle. Now, I really wanted a bell for my church, but I couldn't find one that I really liked the shape of. So I ended up using some of my air dry clay and making my own bell. And I did go ahead and poke a little hole in the top of it so that I can hang this once it's dry. So while my bell was drying, I went ahead and used some smaller craft sticks painted with my antique gold metallic paint. And I'm gonna make the cross for the church, and I also ended up painting my bell the same color. Once those craft sticks were dry, I just cut those down into 4 pieces and then I glued them to the church. And finally, to hang my bell, I'm just using some twine, and I tied a little knot there at the bottom of the bell so that the twine couldn't come out, and then I'll just use some hot glue to attach this to the top of the church. Had some scrap 2x4s laying around, so I went ahead and whitewashed both of those just the same as I did the snowman, and then I'm going to be using this Dollar Tree burlap and this Dollar Tree fabric. Now to start, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap that fabric around my 2x4, and I'm going to cut it down the size that I need. And then as you see here, you can tell that I am going to fold up that edge so that this looks like a little snow cap. And once I cut that down, I did end up folding the very edge of this in and hot gluing it just to give it a clean edge. Then, like I said before, I just kind of tucked this under itself, and then I'm just going to wrap it around and hot glue it in the back. Then I pulled all the fabric to the top, and I'm going to use some of this twine to tie around and make a bow. And then I just cut off all of that excess fabric at the top, just leaving a little bit sticking out. Then I went ahead and cut down some of that Dollar Tree burlap ribbon, and that's what I'm going to use to make the scarf for these snowmen. And I just used one of my paint markers to make the little eyes, and then I'm going to use a really tiny brush with some of my orange paint to make his nose. And I did go ahead and use a stamp for the second one. It was a joy stamp, but for this one, I just did a little hand drawing of a Christmas tree. For this next project, I'm going to be using some scrap 2x4s that I already had laying around, but you can definitely use Dollar Tree wood for this project. You would just glue 2 pieces together and then go ahead and cut those down to make 2 little house shapes. Or if you didn't want to cut wood down, you could use some of the Dollar Tree house decor that they put out seasonally and all year long. But for mine, I did go ahead and drill little holes in the top, and I'm going to make little chimneys later that you'll see, and I'm going to put down in these holes. But to make these holes, I had to drill inward and then down into these. And the first thing I did was just go ahead and whitewash both of these pieces. I just added a little bit of water to some of my white chalk paint, and I'm gonna paint over these entire pieces with this. Then I'll let that sit for a minute and I will rub it off with a paper towel. Now I did end up doing this a few times until I got the color that I wanted. Then I'm going to use this Dollar Tree stencil. You can see it has a little brick design on here, and I thought it would be really neat to mix up some spackling with a little bit of water and rub it over this brick design on the stencil so that you could get a raised textured brick on these houses. Now I just went in and kind of put some in random places. I wanted to make these look like old homes that maybe some of the brick was falling off, and I just thought that was really cute. Now I let the spackling dry for about 24 hours, and then I just mixed up some brick color paint, and I'm gonna go in and barely dab some of this paint on random bricks. Once I had painted the random bricks that I wanted to do, I did go back in with some of my white chalk paint and dry brush over all of the bricks so that the bricks would look whitewashed. For the chimneys that I talked about at the beginning, I am just using some more of those Dollar Tree wood pieces, and I just used some wood glue and stuck those down in the holes. And finally, for this project, I felt like it needed some greenery, so again, I'm using one of those Dollar Tree little Christmas tree pick things. I forget what they're called. But anyway, I did go ahead and trim the needles down on these, and I'm just gonna twist these up into a little wreaths to add to the houses. I wanted to make some little Christmas candlesticks, so I picked up 3 of these little planks from Dollar Tree, and then I'm also going to be using some of these little square wood planks from Dollar Tree as well. I just cut that down in half, and then for the little flames on these candles, I'm actually using these little wood pieces that come out of the toy race car kits. The first thing I had to do was cut 2 of these little planks down because I wanted my candlesticks to be different heights, so I just figured out kind of where I wanted it, and then I cut those 2 pieces. Then I went ahead and stained all the pieces with some of my Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm gonna go back over these once they were dry and dry brush some of my white chalk paint onto them. I also painted the little square wood piece that I had cut in half at this point too, because that's going to be the base. While I was waiting for everything to dry, I went ahead and used some of my gold metallic paint to paint those little race car pieces so that I could use those for the flame. I also ended up dry brushing a little bit of my metallic copper paint over these as well, and then I'm just going to use some wood glue to attach these. After that had dried, I did go ahead and use some more wood glue to put these candlesticks together. And to add on the base, I'm just using a combination of wood glue and hot glue, just using the hot glue to hold this until the wood glue has time to dry. Then I felt like this needed a little more detail, so I wanted to make some dripping wax go down these candles, and I'm just using my hot glue gun and just making little wax marks all over these candles. Then I went in with some of my white chalk paint over all of the hot glue. And finally, for this project, I added in a little bit of twine at the bottom, some of Dollar Tree's little bells, and a little more of that greenery. This next project, I wanted to make a little countdown to Christmas kind of thing. So I found this birchwood piece at Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to go over it very lightly with some of my white chalk paint. Now I'm going to be using some of these stamps that I got from Amazon, and of course I will have everything I use in today's video linked below for you if possible, but I wanted to use this little reindeer and Santa sleigh, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp that onto the front of my birchwood piece. And then I had another stamp that said Santa Claus is coming to town, so I'm going to put that right above where I stamped the sleigh. Then I had some of these little vintage hooks, and I actually found these in my house when I moved in it. We live in a very old house, so I found these and I've been holding on to them, and I thought they would be perfect for this project. Then I'm going to take one of these larger wood rounds. These are from Dollar Tree, and I'm actually just going to cut this right in half to make these a little thinner, and then I'll be using some of this Dollar Tree chalkboard paint, and I'm just going to go around and paint the center of these. Then I'm just going to take two of these little eye hooks. I also got these at Dollar Tree as well, and I'm just going to screw these down into the tops of the wood pieces. Now I didn't want to drill into this birchwood piece because it's really thin, so I just went ahead and used some gel super glue to glue the little hooks down. And finally, for this project, all I had to do was go ahead and prep that chalkboard piece so that I could write how many days until Christmas. For this next project, I wanted to make some nutcrackers, and I had these little spindles, and it was one piece, and I just went ahead and cut it down in half. But if you don't have spindles, you can find them on Etsy for really super cheap, or you could actually just use chunky dowels for that part. For the arms and the legs, I'm just using some Dollar Tree dowels, and I cut the arms down at 2.5 inches and the legs down at 4.5 inches. For the shoulders and the hands, I'm going to be using these velvet push pins from Dollar Tree, and I'm just using this little tool I got from Dollar Tree, and I'm poking holes in the little pieces that I'm using for the arms, and then all I have to do is push those little push pins down in there. But I realized before I do all of those, I should go ahead and paint these, so everything got 2 coats of my white chalk paint. Then once everything was dry, I did go ahead and finish doing the push pins in the arms, and I did add a drop of hot glue to these just so that they would stay down in there. For the base of my nutcrackers, I'm just using these little wood pieces. These came off of some of Dollar Tree's bottle brush trees, and I just had these left over from a project before, so I'll be using these for the base. But before I do that, I went ahead and glued all of my nutcrackers together. I'm just gluing the arms on here, and I am using a combination of wood glue and my Gorilla Glue hot glue sticks for this. And once I had the arms on, I went ahead and did the same for the legs. For the hats for my nutcrackers, I found these little crystal knobs at Dollar Tree, and they actually had silver pieces on the bottom, but I went ahead and painted those vintage gold, and then all I had to do was screw these down into the tops of them. And once I had those screwed in, I went back in and decided to add some vintage antique gold to the bottom of these for their boots, and I also painted the little stands. And as you can see here, I did go ahead and drill little holes in the stands for these nutcrackers, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of wood glue before I put these down in there. And that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed these Christmas DIY projects. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.